All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Ralph Hanna and Fede Perez. And guys, here we are. It is December, the final month of the year, as people are getting ready to put on their Christmas decorations, as they haven't, of course, because what is everyone doing? Obviously, the Paraguayan League is coming to a close. We have a champion, a deserved champion at the end of the day, that we'll get to talk about. We still have some titles to also be decided in Paraguay, and also some spots to be decided about who will play in the continental competitions in South America. We also have, obviously, the draw of the Copa America happening next week. That's a big deal for us as Paraguay fans here abroad, or even the United States, as we get to see who Paraguay will play in the Copa America happening next summer in the United States. And also everything else that's been going on. You know, we've been seeing some friendly faces that we'll talk about in the intro getting call-ups, being able to play. We've seen that as well. But it's been an interesting week, you would say. And I'll go to Fede on this one because, of course, here we are, the end of the year. Usually the things are closing out. And I wanted to start with, obviously, kind of the moves that are going on with teams. We saw Olimpia, for example, get rid of a bunch of names, Ivan Torres being one of them, and many others. You know, this is a thing that I think everyone is kind of looking out, where everyone's trying to balance the books and figure out what's going to happen to all these teams come next year, whether they want to improve and get better in 2024.
Yeah, it's totally that time, right, Roberto, where you sit down and you reflect on everything that happened to you this year. Obviously, the clubs go by it also. They do that kind of balance of the year and see what they've done wrong, what they've done right. And the big teams have done a lot of things wrong this year. So, yeah, they definitely got to do things differently next season, because it was 2023, the year of Libertad. No way around it. No rivals for them, I would even say, in the local league, obviously, and maybe even the Copa Paraguay. We have to talk about that final also, because it will happen in just a couple of days. I think we'll probably talk about what happened in that match in our last episode. Probably the next episode will probably be the last of the year, because we got to wrap it up. We're also coming into December. Roberto has to come to Paraguay. He's going to have his vacations, and he doesn't like to work when he's on vacation. Rap, I hope, also enjoys his time, his holiday season. You guys are already on holiday mood. I know how it is in the United States after Thanksgiving. It's all about Christmas. It's all about New Year's. Here it's a little bit differently. You know, you got Cacupe coming up this weekend. That's obviously a big holiday here for the religious people. And yeah, it's that kind of the year, that time of the year where you got people buying a lot of stuff, going crazy in the streets, a lot of chaos and traffic. You know, December comes with a lot of stuff here in Asuncion and the cities that surround it. Also, you guys, Roberto's from San Lorenzo, so he knows what I'm talking about. Ralph lived in Luque for a long time, so all these cities really go crazy in December. As for football, Roberto, yeah, we got to talk about what's going on. What happened actually this week? There was several different things that had to be decided, actually, right? Because we had the champion, but we still had spots in Sudamericana. The Libertadores was still up for grabs, and relegation, obviously. And I think that was the big showdown of this last couple of games. I mean, what we saw with Guaidenia, what happened with them, the amount of goals that they received, they were definitely not waiting for that to happen in the last game against Trinidad. They had the opportunity to win that game and forget about Taquari, but Taquari actually beat Libertad. So yeah, we got to talk about these games, because it actually was a crazy episode. I was not waiting for this final, and Taquari is gonna be in first division again next year, and it is Guaidenia after 4 years of being a first division team that is going to go back to Intermedia, Roberto. That's probably the big news in these last couple of days, as we obviously had to talk about Olimpia, Cerro Porteño. They're letting go players. They're re-signing players also. The big teams got to do a great job next season, Roberto, because they really did not have a good year at all.
I was going to say, you forgot one big event that's happening in Paraguay. The Cure are coming in concert. They'll be there in Paraguay right before Cacupe.
We have a whole bunch of big concerts going on next year. I was looking at the calendar. We have a lot of artists coming to Paraguay next year.
Indeed. Hopefully it's not a fiasco like it was with Doja Cat, because remember those things? That was a big thing. But Ralph, yeah, going into drama in the sense that obviously the two teams that did get promoted from the Intermedia are Sol de America, they're back, and Sportivo Do de Mayo, Pedro Juan Caballero. So you have a team coming from the countryside replacing one team from the countryside and another one that's based in this area of Asuncion. So obviously kind of a like for like replacement for the two teams that are going up and the two teams that are going down. But yeah, it's crazy to see how Trinidense, you know, a side that, you know, just made their promotion. They haven't played a lot of first division football in their history, I would say. It's been only a few times that it's happened in their history, and now they're going to play the Libertadores next year, where some big teams are not going to be playing it, like Olimpia, for example, because they will be playing in that Copa Paraguay final against the reigning champions of the Clausura and the Apertura in Libertad. So kind of a David versus Goliath kind of clash tomorrow. And hey, I mean, a Trinidad can do it tomorrow and win, was it 600 million Guaranis or something like that? And check, but that's a huge deal for them. Plus, of course, the money that they're going to get for making the Copa Libertadores next year as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for Trinidad, like you say, they were traditionally a yo-yo club, I would say. They kind of would be in Primero for a little bit, then head down to Intermedia, and really that's where they played most of their football in what we call the Ascenso, right? But just like Sportiva Emiliano, who before them, they seem to have really managed to get behind one good coach, who's a very young coach in Jose Arrua, and then they've kind of built this team, and they're playing, you know, really good football. They're playing quite forward-thinking football. It's not like they're just very defensive and winning on counterattacks, and that's taken them into the Copa Paraguay final, which again, like Sportiva Emiliano, who did that last year. And you said that David and Goliath, well, it was similar, right? Emiliano managed to beat. I remember they beat Olimpia also in the Super Cup, which is another tournament that Trinidense could play should they win tomorrow. So there's a lot at stake, a lot on the line. The Copa Libertadores is I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it's almost like a poison chalice, because remember, they're not guaranteed at this point the group stage. They're still going to have to play qualifiers. If they were to be in the group stage, then they've guaranteed themselves a lot of money, right? But at this point, it's like, do we invest heavily to try and win those games to get us to the groups, or do we risk it? Or do we not do that, because you could invest heavily, get knocked out, and then you're playing the whole season with a really big wage budget that you can't manage. And talking about that takes me to Guaireña, who you were just saying have been relegated, and we have to see what could happen with Guaireña, because 4 or 5 years ago they were not a professional club. They were basically a regional team. They came through the Interligas process and the regional system in Paraguay, and then they formed a professional team once they got to Intermedia. And now, do they maintain this, knowing that they're going down a level, and the promise of them coming up is very difficult? Intermedia is a really tough league. I mean, Sol de America did well to bounce straight back up, just like Luqueño had done the year before them, but it's not easy. So we might see what's unfortunately happened with people like River Plate or with Capiatá, teams that have been in the top division but kind of fallen out, because it's really hard once you drop down. They don't have in Paraguay the parachute payments, for example, that the Premier League give to teams when they're relegated. So it's a really big blow. It's very sad for Guaireña, I think, because they're one of those teams that actually would fill out their stadium, because they're the main, you know, point of that town in weekends. You know, there's the biggest thing to do there down in Villarrica. They got full stadiums, and then you have teams, you know, like Tacuarú, who don't really get many people coming to games. They're not that kind of popular as a side, because they're just one of many in Asuncion, as you mentioned. So it's sad to see Guaireña go down, but let's see if they can pull something off and get back up. We have a few, you know, of those regional teams still hanging around, like Carapeguá is another one. They for a time were in the top division and almost heading towards Copa Sudamericana at one point. So let's see if they can bounce back. And just before I go back to you, Roberto, on the international side, so Paraguay's women's team have been playing. They played a friendly last night against Russia in the CAFEM. They lost, unfortunately, 3-0. It wasn't a particularly good game. I think they were pretty much blown away in the first half. But then today, the under-17s and under-19s are playing, and in the under-17s is Flor Cáceres, who we've mentioned on the show before a long time ago when she was representing Florida. So she's traveled from Miami to Paraguay, her first international call-up, which is pretty cool. She's playing under 17s. That's above her age group. So let's see if she gets some game time. The game's on Tigo. So that would be a really cool experience. And yeah, it's good as well. And in women's football to mention, you talked about the Copa America draw. CONCACAF, Paraguay has been invited right to the CONCACAF women's tournament in February. And they confirmed the venues this week. Most of it's around California, but they're also playing in Houston. So if I get lucky, I might see Paraguay in Houston in February.
I'm waiting as well for the venues to be confirmed in New York as well. But yeah, it'd be very nice. And yeah, going back to Fede on Trinidense just one last time, I mean, it's a big deal for them. You know, I think you've been able to watch some of the games. They have a really a coach like mentioned Fede mentioned with what Ralph mentioned with Arua and really just trying to have like this kind of mentality to go through. And if they are able to achieve, which honestly I don't see it happening. I think Libertad are favorites in this one, and they should be able to win it. But you know, that's the surprise sometimes in these kind of competitions. But it would be something special for them to do it against probably the best team in Paraguay at the moment, and a side that has kind of dominated Paraguayan football for the last 2 years. So for Trinidense to do that, to achieve not just qualifications to Libertad, not just going from the start, promotion, you know, Copa Paraguay win, Libertadores, and possibly even the Super Copa. That's a huge deal for them.
I think it's been a dream year for them, even for their coach. I don't know if to get into the Libertadores was actually in their plans at all. I mean, the Apertura was just huge for them. They didn't have the best Clausura, but they actually came back into their best form right at the end of the year with the run that allowed them to get into the final of the Copa Paraguay also. And they actually did really good against the big teams, which is also, I think, great for them, and which is exactly what they're going to need to show against Libertad. You know, and Libertad, after being able to clinch their title a couple of games before the end of the calendar, before the end of the Clausura, they've been actually able to rest most of the players. The starting team played against Olympia last weekend, and they had to play against Tacuary midweek, and we have high temperatures, and Libertad has a huge roster, and the coach said, hey, you know what, we don't care about Tacuary playing for relegation. We're actually going to play a lot of the youth players, and we're going to think about the final of the Copa Paraguay because we want to win the 3 titles that we can win this year. No other team in first division has done that ever since this format took place not so long ago, right? And it could be the second time Libertad wins the title, and they could also moving forward. Cerro has not won it. Olimpia won it just once. Guarani won it just once. So Libertad could take the lead in that sense also. So it could be just a perfect way to end the year for them. But looking at it from Trinidense's point of view, and they've been a really organized club, I would say, with Jonathan Santana also helping out from the manager point. And, you know, this is an ex-player. A lot of people might remember him from playing in Europe a long time, and also having a very important role in that team that played in South Africa in 2010. He's one of those historical players. He was actually even able to take Lucas Barrios at the beginning of the year, which was a player that you would never think that would go to a team like Trinidense. So they actually brought in a lot of good players this year and mixed them up with that base of players that was already playing in Intermedia. And with a great job from Jose Arrua, I just think they've had the perfect mix. And experienced players also on this squad that had to go to second division, come back with this team, and they're kind of having that revenge tour, Ralph. I kind of like that term with some of these players. I'm talking about Marcos Riveros. I'm talking about Oscar Jimenez. These are players that have played in big teams, have played big games, but if they clinch this title of the Copa Paraguay, I could just see that for them it's just going to be a huge title, and it would actually be the first star that Trinidense would put in their shirt, right? So this is a big game for them. This is just pure history that they're gonna go through in this Copa Paraguay final.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a very big game, and I like what you mentioned about some of those players that really are very experienced, like Marcos Riveros. He's a very good player still. Technically very good from set pieces, and then you have someone big like Oscar Jimenez that could score, and that might be where they're looking to do something against such a strong Libertad side who really have been perfect. And I think it's important to talk about how the Paraguayan system works with the Apertura and Clausura. Traditionally, a team, if you've won the Apertura, like Libertad had, you're qualified for Copa Libertadores. And so naturally, it's very difficult to get a team motivated or to maintain a team through the Clausura to be playing at a top level, because it's the way the system is. Essentially, you don't need to win the league. And so a team winning both Apertura and Clausura is fairly rare. The person that's really managed to do it and keep it going has been Daniel Garnero, because he did it with Olimpia. And now, although he's not technically the manager for these last few games, he's done it here with Libertad. I mean, obviously, Galliano has taken over since Garnero went to the national team, but this is very much, you know, a Garnero side that and the culture that he's kind of instilled there. And so that's been amazing that they kept that up. And now it's like, yeah, you got one more game. You got 90 minutes more to try and hit the treble. This is the closest we get to the treble in Paraguayan football, that they can win this game. But then you have the Trinidense team that are out to surprise. And we saw with Emiliano in the previous year, you know, that they can spring a surprise in the final. They can make it difficult for you, these so-called smaller teams. So I think we're gonna have a good game. It's gonna be really hot as well, and that can always make things difficult, I think, you know, depending what's going on.
So I guess
this is not a small side, Roberto. Before going back to you, this is not a small team. If you look at the players, a lot of these players have played in big teams, and a lot of them have also played in Libertad before. So they're not going to feel the pressure, I think, in this kind of match, going up against the biggest and best team of the year, which has clearly has been Libertad.
I agree. I think it's going to be one of those really tight games. It's not going to be as straightforward as we maybe would be accustomed to, but I still see Libertad as favorites, but it'll be tight. I mean, I got Libertad winning this one, a tight one, but I'll say 1-0 on this one. Fede, what do you say on this? Who wins the Copa Paraguay?
You know, I saw Trinidad scored a lot of goals against Guarani, so I think they're fired up for this final. Even the subs, because they actually didn't play a lot of the starting players also against Guarani, and they showed that they're ready for these big games. They just stomped on Guarani, and Libertad arrested. So I'm actually thinking that we might have a match with a lot of goals, guys. Maybe a 2-2 in penalties, or a 3-2 for one of the two teams. I'm gonna go with Libertad. I think it's gonna be a tight one, but Libertad's gonna take it away with a lot of goals. I want to see a show in this final.
All right, so Ralph, that leaves to you. Do you see one of these tight games, or do you see a goal fest? But ultimately, are you in agreement that Libertad are gonna win the Copa Paraguay?
I think we'll see goals, actually, because partly because of, as I mentioned before, Trinidense is not a team to play defensively. I think they will go out to try and, you know, put their foot forward. And interesting, Libertad, for as good as they are, they do concede a lot of goals. I think both teams to score has like landed in the last 5 of 6 games or something, you know, as in this run-in. So I can see both teams scoring, but I can see Libertad coming out on top. They are the stronger side, and there's just so much firepower. Like the other day, I saw Antonio Barreiro with the trophy. He's a guy that's been injured for so long, and you're like, wow, he's back in the team now. That's somebody who would be an automatic starter in pretty much any side, I think, in Primera, and he's been there on the bench because they have Tito Villalba, because they have, you know, Melgarejo, they have all these players. So there's just such a strong team there. I think Libertad will win, but I think both teams will score. So it could be a 2-1, 3-1 to Libertad.
I love it. I love seeing all these kind of different predictions. Maybe we'll get all proven wrong and Trinidad will win. That's how it always happens on the show when we predict stuff. But yeah, let's hope for a good game as we close out that section to go into what's still up to play for, to obviously see who is still in contention to obviously qualify for the Copa Libertadores and the Sudamericana. Of course, Libertad and Cedro and Trinidense, all three of them will be assured of a Libertadores spot, but there's still, you know, questions about what's going to happen to the other teams. What's going to happen to, of course, Guarani, Nacional, Olimpia. They're still in that kind of mix as well. It looks like, although Olimpia are, of course, in the Sudamericana, so that leaves teams like Ameliano also in. but you still got to fight for those last spots. You got you got Sportivo Luqueño, Ralph, you got General Caballero, and you still have those spots open for who goes to Libertadores and Sudamericana between Guarani Nacional. I mean, it's open for everyone at this point.
Yeah, that's right. And we're recording on the final day of the regular season, or of the season itself. And those games, the 3 games today, all have to kick off at the same time. Usually the way it works is Tigo like to televise every game, and you stagger the games across a weekend. But when it gets down to it and there's points at stake, they have to put games on at the same time. So you have Cerro Guaraníes at the same time because General Caballero Olimpia are also playing, and then the Sportivo Luqueño Nacional. And so those teams all involved in this possible, the last push for a Sudamericana place and for that extra money that we're talking about. It's, I don't know, it's been such a strange season because behind Libertad, there's been so much inconsistency from everybody, even Cerro, where traditionally what we've seen is Cerro have actually been a very good team, but they were just not at the standard of Libertad, and they fall just short. But this year's been different, right? With there was a time with Gavilan when they drew a lot of games, and then even now they're not really convincing. There's, their best player pretty much, Aquino, ended up in Vélez and was doing really well for Vélez, and they had that whole thing of getting rid of star players to try and bring in new ones. It's been a strange time, so it's not a guarantee for me that Cerro beat Guarani today. So that gives Guarani a great shot, right? Even though at the same time, I think Guarani have been very inconsistent themselves. They've had times where they've looked really good, very good going forward, really exciting. And there's other times where they've just seemed like they can't really break the lines of teams, and it's been very frustrating to watch them. So that you have that game, Olimpia being pretty abject, which has been really surprising since Chiquiase came in. You thought he would have turned things around, he would have made them a better side, and I don't think we've seen that. They have to travel. They're not particularly good, I think, when they have to travel. So again, it gives maybe General Caballero a shot, although I think Olimpia might do enough there. And then the Luque Nacional game, I think that's the pick of the 3 for me. That's the one I'm most excited with because both teams are still fighting for something. And I really like, we talked about Julio Cesar Cáceres was such a great coach at Olimpia, and he took over with Luqueño and got them, playing this quite a bit more attacking football, but just a bit more organized football and a bit easier to watch. So I enjoy watching Luqueño at the moment, and it's going to be a home game, and so I think that could be a really good one. So I don't know how this will work out, the whole standings, but I have a feeling like maybe you'll have Guarani could win, Luque could win, and then General Caballero might get a draw. So I don't know, where would that leave us? Somebody that knows, but I'm seeing something along those lines. I'm not expecting Cerro and Olimpia to win, for example.
You want me to go, right, Roberto? You want me to predict what's going to happen? You want me to say what's going to go?
Of course. Why wouldn't I?
It's impossible to know, guys, especially after what happened with Tacuarí. Look at the run that they had to save themselves from relegation, and what happened with Guaireni and that meltdown against Trinidense. They conceded 7 goals. I mean, after watching that situation, after seeing what happened on that second relegation spot, I mean, I'm up for anything in the Sudamericana spot. Also, just because the way, just like Rob was saying, the way that these teams have looked this year, you don't know what you're going to get from Luqueño. This has not been a winning team all year long. They've had promise to win big games also. And yeah, you have the fans by their side now because they're not fighting for relegation anymore. When it was the pressure on them, it really looked ugly for Luqueño again. And they kind of went through that situation again of being a team that almost left the first division quickly. Fortunately for them, they're able to stay again and hopefully build a team around Julio Cáceres, which is a young but very good coach, I would say. He was already champion with Olimpia. Hopefully he keeps on working next year in Luqueño. Nacional is a really good young squad also. I kind of think that they deserve to be in Libertadores. I don't know that Guarani has done enough this year to get that spot. So if I have to pick a team between Guarani and Nacional, which team I think deserves to go to Libertadores, I would say Nacional for what they've done along the year. Guarani has a very young team, and it's gonna depend a lot. I think if they get into the Libertadores, if they're gonna keep most of these players, if they're gonna start selling players like they did this year with Matias Segovia going to Brazil. They have Bernardo Romeo Benitez, which is also a bright star that's also been always in the rumors that he could leave and be a big sell for Guarani, leave a lot of money for the club. We'll see what happens with him at the end of the year. And so I'm going in that pick between Guarani and Nacional. I'm going with Nacional. And for the Sudamericana, that was really, really hard. I think Luqueño with the fans by their side, I think they could clinch that spot, winning at home. I think Nacional had opportunity. I'm sorry. I think the other team had opportunities before. So I think Luqueño is going to get in there. Somehow they're going to win this game, and they're going to mess it up for Nacional, and they're going to get in there. Guarani is going to have a better game than Cerro Porteño, I would say, because Cerro Porteño is already thinking on vacations. So just like Olimpia is, Roberto, that's the honest answer. You've seen players kind of relax after the title went for Libertad in Cerro Porteño, and you've seen players in Olimpia that have kind of let go of the rope also. That's why players are kind of leaving Olimpia. We've had the likes of Tito Torres and Ale Silva, which were probably players that have been there for a while, and just the way they left also, they were not happy to see their names on social media and not get a call like they wanted from the from the club. And also Sergio Talvaro, the Colombian, the veteran, is also leaving. Just three of the top names of the long list, actually, that of players that are going to leave Olimpia. There is a budget cut. The budget keeps on cutting and cutting itself in Olimpia as they still have debts and problems. And those problems Cerro does not have, but Cerro needs to hire or bring or signing good players for next season. And in that sense, Fernando Cubero has been looking into new players. He was traveling around the continent. I think he was in Brazil and then in Argentina looking for players, seeing what Cerro Porteño is going to do in their preseason. There's rumors that Cerro Porteño could do part of their preseason and play games in Argentina against big teams. So we'll see what happens with that. Cerro wants to get ready for a big year, Roberto, in 2024. I don't know how Olimpia is going to sign players. I don't know what kind of players Olimpia can sign with the problems that they have. But the big teams have to come in with a totally different plan next year, Roberto, because they really were behind. They really ran behind this year in these kind of races in Libertadores and in Sudamericana also. I mean, to not see Olimpia and Libertadores for a lot of people here, for Olimpia fans, it's kind of a shock after a couple of years, or 8 years, 7 years. It's been a while.
It's been a while, and it's kind of a shock as well. But hopefully, it allows them to kind of get back to earth and understand that their situation is not the same of compared to El Cedro or Libertad or whatnot. So it makes sense for them to understand that. But yeah, I think looking at it right now, I think Nacional are best suited to take that final Libertadores spot. That's how I feel. And for the Sudamericana, I mean, yeah, it's still up to grabs, but I still go for Luqueño. I think Luqueño are going to do it, and I think it's going to stay in that way right now. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see all of this happen, and hopefully, as we close out here, another good episode of Guarani Vision, that we get a great final day. We get a good weekend of football happening, and yeah, we can put a bow on what has been a chaotic but interesting 2023 for Paraguayan football, from national team to club level as well. So that's one way to close out this really good episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.